Spelljammer for 5th edition is finally here. GameMasters here, and we have in our review copy for Spelljammer, and today's video is a dive into checking out the first of 3 books included in the box set, the Astral Adventurer's Guide. The other 2 books, Boo's Astral Menagerie, this is a Spelljammer Monster Manual, and Light of Xeraxis, which is a Spelljammer adventure. Those we're going to feature in a later video, but if you'd like to see our initial first look live stream, I'll link that towards the end of this video. But today we're diving into the Astral Adventurer's Guide. As always, I want to start off with the disclaimer. Space sickness is a common malady that primarily affects world huggers. Before embarking on a wild space voyage, consult your local apothecary for a suitable remedy, such as a box of crackers, a perfume-soaked handkerchief, or a map. The book is broken down into 3 chapters with a short intro that goes over the terminology that is used in the Spelljammer setting. It references terms like the astral plane, which is the plane that has all of the planets and stars in it, and is the blanket that wraps itself around the material plane. Another term that comes up is wild space. This is the area, the airless void of space that the planets themselves are in. It also references spelljamming helms. These are big chairs, helms that are worn and sat in that are used to steer the spelljamming ships. They require a spellcaster to use. There is also a table where you can roll a d10 to get seeds, or what we've referred to in the past as hooks, to get your adventurers into the setting of Spelljammer. Chapter 1 goes into material for players and details out 2 new backgrounds and 6 new races. Chapter 2 provides us with 2 new spells and 3 new magic items, but where Chapter 2 really shines is in its presentation of the Spelljammer ship deck plans. Chapter 3 describes the Rock of Bral, a massive asteroid that has a city built upon it. With the basics out of the way, let's check out Chapter 1. You have 2 new backgrounds, the Astral Drifter and the Wild Spacer. The Astral Drifter has been brought up on a ship in wild space. They have lost all track of time and really cannot remember how old they actually are. Just like in our own world, Earth, when an astronaut goes up into space, they age a bit slower than we here on the planet do. Wild space and the astral sea have the same effect. Your aging can be slowed the longer you spend in it. A feature that this background gets is Divine Contact. You gain the Magic Initiative feat from the player's handbook and must choose a cleric for the feat. As you travel the astral sea, you have encountered a wandering deity, and that deity has imparted upon you a secret. You and the DM will determine what the secret is, and while your DM can choose the deity, you can also roll randomly upon the Divine Contact table. The Wild Spacer was also raised in wild space, makes sense given the name, and as such it has toughened you to the horrors and challenges of traveling through space. You have encountered your fair share of wild space's terror, and while you have survived, a close encounter once upon a time has had a lasting effect on you. You can roll on the close encounter table to determine really what it was that you encountered, and the DM will determine the lasting effect. Could be something like a reoccurring nightmare or something like that. You also have a feature called Wild Space Adaptation. Being in space, you have gotten used to 0 gravity, and you don't take disadvantage on any of your melee attack rolls when you are weightless. There are 6 new race options: the Astral Elf, Autognome, Gif, Hadozi, Plasmoid, and Thri-kreen. I'll do a brief rundown on them here, but in future videos we'll go in a bit more depth with each one. The Astral Elf is the name, as the name implies, are elves that have grown up in the astral plane in an attempt to be closer to their gods. The Autognome is all mechanical and were originally built by rock gnomes. It was because of perhaps a malfunction or some other event that separated the Autognome from its creator, and it just kind of struck out on its own. The Gif is a large hippopotamus-like humanoid that loves space travel and loves firearms. They often argue as to if they are referred to as Gif or as Jif, and those arguments often devolve into headbutting contests. The Hadazee are generally small to medium in size and are kind of a cross between chimpanzee and flying squirrel. And I don't want to say too much about these guys as I'm doing a deep dive into them into a future video real soon. The plasmoid is an ooze. I released a video covering these guys in depth a few days ago. You can check it out here. But I really wonder if they could be distantly related to the gelatinous cube. The Thrycreen are an old race, but now are a playable race. These guys are tall and insectoid. They clack their mandibles when speaking, which is difficult to comprehend. So when they do wish to communicate with others, they'll use a form of telepathy. As mentioned, Chapter 2 goes into spells, magic items, and deck plans. Now, before we jump into that, I'd love to ask that if you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps spread it to more eyes, and I thank you kindly for that. For spells, we get Air Bubble. You create a bubble of air around a willing creature's head, and they can breathe air for up to 24 hours. We also get Create Spelljamming Helm. This converts a chair into a spelljamming helm that will allow a spellcaster to control a spelljamming ship. For magic items, we get Fish Suit. This is a large suit that covers your body and allows you to breathe in an airless environment, and it renders you immune to harmful gas that surrounds you. We also get Spelljamming Helm. This is a large chair that a spellcaster can sit in, and that will allow them to control a spelljamming ship. We also get Wild Space Orrery. This is a portable device that allows you to track the positions of the planets and other celestial bodies within a space system. And it will also show where the orrery itself is. In essence, this is a map, three-dimensional map that will show you where you are. The meat of Chapter 2 are the Spelljammer deck plans themselves. And check these out. There are 16 in all presented here, with several of them being new and not previously released in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons version. And the savvy player will note that the old AD&D version of Spelljammer had many more deck plans in it. And here's the cool part. You can easily use those from that edition in 5th edition. Just convert it, and it's super simple to convert. Although this book does not detail how to convert them, really all you have to do is look at the deck plans from AD&D and decide the location for things like the storeroom or the captain's quarters. Just decide where they are. And you may need to determine how much cargo any given old version deck plan can hold. But aside from that, converting it is super simple. I'll do a video in the future where we deep dive into some of the ships presented here in this book. Chapter 3 covers the Rock of Bral. This is a massive asteroid that has a city built upon it, and in the previous edition, the Rock of Bral was a stationary asteroid around Toril, the planet where Forgotten Realms is from. But in this 5th edition version, you are free to place it anywhere you want. You could even have it move through the astral sea if your campaign needs it to. Bral sees a population of various races and classes, from mercenaries to monks, from pirates to nobles. It's a major trade-faring stop point and is a hub of activity that the players will most certainly want to visit. One thing about this chapter that does surprise me is that it does not contain an adventure in or around the Rock of Bral itself. It's possible that the book Light of Xeraxis has an adventure plot in it that will bring the players here, but otherwise this chapter only describes certain locations within the rock itself, which of course can be used to flesh out any Dungeon Masters campaign should the players find themselves there. This chapter also details important persons of influence within the Rock of Bral. Among them is Large Luigi, and he may freak you out the first time you see him. He is a neutral, aligned, and very large beholder that runs a tavern that is rarely troubled by bullies and thieves. Well, because would you knowingly steal from an entity that can see in almost any direction and at the same time shoot rays from those same eyes that can see in almost any direction? I am beyond excited about Spelljammer for 5th edition being out. It's been among my favorite settings for many years, and to see it propelled into an up-to-date version, that's just this is one that I can certainly see myself reading. This book, all three books really, from cover to cover. I recently did a first look where we went through and checked out some other details of all three books in this box set. And if you'd like to see that, check out this live stream that I did. What's one of the first things you are most wanting to check out in this new edition of Spelljammer? What can't you wait to find out about? Let me know in the comments below, and until next our paths cross, may Large Luigi buy you a round of mead.